What a big question. How do we get 400 horsepower out of a naturally aspirated Q37? Well, you can't. End of video. LOL. But for real, let's talk about what has been done with the VQ naturally aspirated and what could potentially be done and how we could get to 400 wheel or very close to it. Very interesting. Well, there is a 370Z worked on and tuned by Z1 Motorsports that has gotten very close, and I'll put a link in the description to that video. But they have a lot of parts and work involved in this car. So let's just go through a quick rundown of what was in that car to get there. So that car essentially had the Z1 400 horsepower package installed, which is something that I've talked about in a previous video and would say it is not worth the money, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So that includes Z1 headers, cold air intakes, ported upper and lower intake manifold, full exhaust, and up rev tune, but also included GTR injectors and the E85 conversion. Now, what made the biggest impact on the final horsepower number they were able to achieve, however, I would say with this combination, is the JWT C2 cams that were installed. This is not just a bolt-on car. They actually opened it up and changed out the cams. Now, this is just a kind of a side note of why I say that Z1 400 horsepower package is not worth it. Obviously, that's 400 crank horsepower, not the same as wheel. And I've talked about this in the past before, that the reason that these cars don't respond all that well to cold air intakes and ported upper and lower manifolds and yada yada is that it just can't do anything with all that air. I got a friend of mine that had all of this installed, including headers, and made the same amount of power that he made with just intakes, test pipes, and a catback exhaust system, and still only 270 something foot-pounds of torque. So even with ported upper and lower intake manifolds, headers, E85 conversion, he still only made less torque than I made with just drop-in filters, test pipes, and a catback exhaust. So obviously dyno has something to do with it, although he was at the same shop and the same dyno as me. Cars make a big difference, obviously, but there's just so many things at play. What the point is that when you don't change out the cam or the cams, the car really can't handle that change, or it doesn't benefit from all the change of bringing all that additional air and moving all that additional air out. It doesn't help. When the cam is the thing, it's kind of the gatekeeper, right? The cams is the gatekeeper of that intake and then the exhaust. So that's a major component. But with that being said, what did Z1, what were they able to achieve with this 370Z? You can watch the complete video for yourself, but with all of those parts, an up rev tune on a dyno jet, 376.95, impressive, no doubt, and 299.1 foot-pounds of torque. The 299 is what I really like to see. I love the idea of making 300 foot-pounds of torque. I wish they could have gotten to that 300 level. And now, I'm not saying that this is anything to blow your nose at. This is impressive. You know, it is close to 400 horsepower, but it's still 25 horsepower away from that 400 naturally aspirated horsepower mark. Like I said, it's nothing to sneeze at, nothing to blow your nose at. It's very impressive. 376 horsepower out of a naturally aspirated VQ37, and it's not even a newer car. I want to say it's an 09. I'd have to check. Don't quote me on that, but go check out the video in the link in the description. But you can see that it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get to that 376, 375 point, when a lot of these guys are making 340 horsepower to the wheels with just a couple of simple bolt-ons. You have to decide of all that labor and all that additional money with the headers, the ported upper and lowers, and then, you know, opening everything up and changing out the cams. You got to decide if that is worth it to you to get an extra 30 horsepower. A lot of guys would say no, myself included, but they were going for a goal. They wanted to see, obviously, you're this gentleman whose car this wanted to see what they could make, and for 300 foot-pounds of torque, or 375-ish horsepower to the wheels. Again, super impressive. But the whole point of this video is, what will it take to get to 400 horsepower? Obviously, it's not bolt-ons and a tune, or even cams, or even E85. So what's left to get us there? Essentially, nitrous. I would love to get 400 wheel out of this thing. But there's lots of questions around E85 and nitrous. Questions obviously around, you know, practicality, longevity, things of that nature. We're finding that going to E85 really isn't all that complicated, but what are the long-term effects of going E85 on these VQ37 engines? You know, some people have done it, got some good results from it. I'll probably do a video coming up here on what actually it takes to switch over to E85 on the VQ. Like I said, not all that complex. We're learning more and more as more people are trying to attempt this, and tuners are getting better at it. But some tuners, on the other hand, are a little bit hesitant to have people make this transition. Nitrous is no exception. There are some tuners that have straight out said, no way, don't even bother trying going nitrous on the VQ. Others have had pretty good success. There's a couple of videos, one YouTuber in particular, Alex Z, on his 370Z. Run nitrous for quite some time before he blew the engine, but he was quite aggressive. I'm not sure what the shot size was, but you can do nitrous relatively inexpensively and get some great numbers and pretty solid performance out of it. Longevity definitely becomes the question. So then I guess the main question remains, right? What is the easiest or best way to get 400 wheel horsepower out of the VQ37, keeping it naturally aspirated? And it seems like, I mean, when you think about what Z1 did, it took a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of money just to get 376 horsepower to the wheels. And again, I'll say it one more time, it's nothing to sneeze at. It's quite impressive for the VQ. The 300 foot-pounds of torque is nice too, but when we're talking best way to make 400 horsepower to the wheels, I don't think that's the route to go. Again, you're still falling short of that 400 horsepower mark. Now, if we're analyzing all of the data and the information that we do have, I would say the easiest way to make 400 horsepower to the wheels is full bolt-ons, E85 conversion, and a 75 shot of nitrous. If you think about it, drop-ins or intakes, whatever you want to do, a catback system including test pipes is going to get you that 330, 340 mark. If you throw an E85 conversion, you should be up close to that 350 wheel point. You throw 75 shot of nitrous in there, a little bit of loss, not going to get you truly 75 horsepower to the wheels. You should be right at 400. Now, if we're talking longevity, that's tough. If you want to talk larger shot of nitrous, there's a lot more that goes into that as well. But generally, E85 and nitrous work well together just because of how cool that E85 burns. But that's a whole other topic. I think I'm going to do a video on what it takes to convert to E85, and also I'll do a separate video on what it takes to run nitrous on your VQ37, and talk a little bit about some of the opinions that are going around about each of those setups. But when we're talking 400 to the wheel, I think that's probably the way you want to go. Again, cost, practicality, longevity, all topics of discussion when we're talking about E85 and nitrous conversions. But if we're just simply talking numbers and how to get there, I guess technically nitrous isn't naturally aspirated, is it? Maybe I should have said all motor. I mean, aspirated does mean to breathe. So you're breathing normally. The engine's breathing normally. You're just shooting something that's super flammable and explosive into it. I guess that is the long of the short of it, guys. If you are wanting to get 400 wheel horsepower out of the VQ37 and not go the route of nitrous, or not go the route of forced induction, whether supercharger or turbocharger setup, it takes a lot to get there. It takes a lot to get 370 plus, obviously. You know, short of a friendly dyno, it's going to take more than the 85 and full bolt-ons and cams. We're talking about engine, you know, significant engine modifications to get that additional 25, 30 horsepower out of it. So, whew, it's crazy. It's unfortunate, but the good thing we have with this VQ37 is it's tried and true, and it is a good, solid platform. I know the 3.0T guys are laughing at this video, and it is what it is. And speaking of that, I do have a little Teespring store set up with some new t-shirt designs. So check that out if you haven't already. I'd appreciate it. Working on a really cool custom design right now for a shirt coming up. But until then, I thought I'd set up a little Teespring store so we can get you guys some speed culture stuff. And one of those t-shirts is a little tongue-in-cheek kind of joke, VQ37 versus 3.0T guys. So check that out. I'll put a link in the description to that as well. Support the channel. I tried to make it as inexpensive as possible. Made the prices as low as I possibly could. So if you guys are interested in any speed culture merch, that'd be awesome. I'd appreciate the support greatly. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching as always. I appreciate everyone following along and engaging, and look forward to seeing you in the next one.